In this episode, I'm going to talk with Dexter. Dexter's a stunt guy. He's been in a lot of different movies. Just recently, he was in Fall Guy. He's also playing in Furiosa that still has to release, and Mortal Kombat 2 that still has to release as well. So that's very cool. And here are some cool clips. Thanks, Dexter.
Of course.
Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it, especially after sort of like meeting me just recently. But I thought we can start with sort of an introduction on your side because you have a stunt background, you edit a lot, and I just want to learn more about you. So maybe you can tell me a small bit about yourself to start off with, and then we go from there.
Okay, sure. Well, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to do this. Yeah, so my name's Aaron Dexter. I'm a professional stunt performer. That is my full-time career. But I did have a very weird, long-winded journey that kind of got me here. I only became a stuntman at 34 years old, so I kind of feel like before that I lived like 5 lifetimes. And that was I studied filmmaking in general, which in my degree included music videos, commercials, documentary, feature films, all that sort of style, even some radio. And so I finished that degree and sort of fell into wildlife documentary making, which was like my passion, and I loved it. I'm obsessed with David Attenborough, and I grew up watching his documentaries. He's the grandfather that we all kind of had. And then from there, I kind of went into commercials and into editing for commercials and learning the visual effects side of things. And then from there, fell into feature films where I was doing all the paperwork and organizing the whole thing and transport and like schedules for actors and all this kind of stuff. And then from there, went into stunts. So that's kind of the weird little quick summary, but yeah.
That's awesome. So it was first you got introduced into the scene just by your study, just like really getting deep into like filming, editing, and everything you saw.
Yeah.
And then, so what was the first time you got like really like, did you apply for a job, or how did you get aware of like stunts in general, or like doing that for a career?
Yeah. So stunts. I always was obsessed with film and watching movies as a kid, and I loved the idea of how you could have the worst day possible and you could go into that cinema and just completely escape your reality for a small amount of time and be made to feel happy, sad, scared, whatever it may be. I never thought it was a possibility. And then when I went, during my journey of all these sort of aspects of the film industry that I worked in, I at one point moved to London and I was living over there. And at this point, I'd sort of traveled around the world a lot, and I'd lived in different places from South Africa to Canada and in the UK. And I always found cities really cliquey. Like even when I lived in Sydney, I didn't really click with Sydney as a city, and it's hard. Like big cities are hard to jive with and get in with. So I always kept up my gymnastics. That's how I grew up as a kid. My parents put me in gymnastics. They thought I had ADD. Turns out I didn't. Got me tested, and they're like, "What do we do with this crazy, crazy child?" And they're like, just put him in sports, like a lot of sports. You just got to wear him out. And it said, I recommend gymnastics because gymnastics isn't like soccer or footy where you just train it 1 day a week. You have your weekend game. You train it 5-6 days a week. So they put me in that, and that was one of the best things they could have ever done for my whole like life and career, basically, because I kept it up even as an adult, just as like a fitness. And so I found that the best way to meet people as I moved around to different cities and around the world was through sports teams. It's where you meet like-minded people that have similar goals. And so when I went to London, I found this amazing gymnastics facility called Hendon. And when I first turned up, I remember walking in and just my mind was blown. There were these guys just doing the craziest stuff I've ever seen, because back then, like, tricking wasn't really a thing in terms of a sport, or not really seen except for in the movies. And these guys were pulling B twists and corks and like illusions and like just crazy moves that I'd never seen before. And I was like, oh my God, these guys are going to be my best friends and they don't even know it yet. And lo and behold, they did befriend me. And they started to teach me some of these things. And so it was very different, because in gymnastics, everything's very linear. And most of the flips and twists are, straight forwards or straight back. And so it took me a little while to get used to. I remember the day I landed my first ever B twist, which, if people don't know what that is, called a butterfly twist. And basically you take off like this with your body. My head's here, my feet are here, and you'll spin on that axis to the world here, and then land. And it was just like one of the happiest days of my life. It was amazing. And I remember even dreaming landing it the night before. So I feel like that really is a testament to how like you can manifest things in your dreams. Anyway, so they kept me going on this journey and teaching me, and then kept like inviting me. They're like, oh, do you want to come like learn some Muay Thai? Like, we'll do some boxing pad work with you. I'm like, oh yeah, that'd be fun. And then they're like, oh, do you want to do a bit of Taekwondo with us? Like, we're going to do some kick work and some kick paddle work. And I was like, yeah, that sounds super cool. Like, I wanted to try everything. I just love learning. Yeah. And it came to the end of my year visa, and I was about to go travel around Europe. And what are you going to do when you go back to Australia, Dex? Like, you said you hate the paperwork side of things. Like, what will you do? And I was like, oh man, like, yeah, I'm not built for the office, and like all this training and everything has been so amazing, but I'm sort of trapped in a way in like where I am. So maybe I'll become a stunt department coordinator, which is doing paperwork, but just for stunts. And they looked at me and they're like, you're an idiot. We've trained you to be a stuntman. You are better than most of the new people coming through here. Go back to Australia and get graded and become a stuntman. I was like, no, surely not. It's like, that's not possible, Like, I've always watched movies and just like, that is incredible what they do. I could never do that. These guys are like, no, like 100%, you can do this. You have to believe in yourself. I was like, okay, say I do believe in myself. If you reset the clock, what would you all go and do for a martial art? And they're like, easy, man. We'd all go do Shaolin Kung Fu or Wushu. I was like, that's not the answer I expected. Like, Chinese martial arts, yeah. I'm a very white male. I am a ginger. Like, it's going to be very weird looking for me to be doing that style of martial arts. And they said, no, it covers every aspect that you could ever need from stunts. It's break falls, it's kicks, it's jumps, kicks, it's all different aspects of weapons, really weird hand movements and balance. And so, yeah, I was like, okay. So I went back to Australia and I did it, and I did what they said, and I started the process here. There's a different system to Australia, or most countries have a different system to what you have to do to become a stunt performer. There's the British Stunt Register in the UK, which is like basically training to be an Olympian. It's very difficult. America doesn't have a system. They're looking at putting one in play just because it's so dangerous that you can be an extra one day and a stunt performer the next. In Australia, we have a grading system. You have to 5 to 6 different disciplines, and you have to tick them all off. Most people it takes 1 to 2 years, depending on what their background is. I was very blessed because of them and the training they'd given me. I got it done in 6 months, which is the shortest amount of time you're allowed to take to get it done. That's amazing. Yeah, and that was kind of it. And then I was obsessed. Like I wanted it to consume my life. I'd never had a career like that where I just wanted it to be in every aspect of my life. And you kind of have to at first with stunts, because it's not a job that, like, you're asking if you do your hand in your CV and you're like, hey, this is me, like, this is my experience, blah, blah, blah. It's all about who you know, and everyone's seeing you train and what you're capable of. And a lot of us kind of almost use our Instagram as like a show reel sort of thing, and you just have to be present and around for people to know who you are. And then you start getting your few little days here. You be a day player, which means you just come in for 1 or 2 days. And then eventually, if that's what you want, you become a core team member, because there's this thing now that's been happening the last sort of 4 or 5 years where we have stunt teams, and they're normally surrounded around one of our bosses who's a stunt coordinator, and whenever they get a job, they take their stunt team with them because they're already all dialed in together. They've chosen a team that has a great broad range of skill sets, from Chinese martial arts to taekwondo to a car driver, a motorbike rider, maybe someone that does high falls, like all these different aspects so that they can cater to absolutely everything. Yeah, and so of late I've been absorbed into a team, and hopefully that continues. And it's the only stunt team in Australia. So I'm very blessed because now I don't have to think about work, it just happens.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, it's such an amazing journey that you like met the right people to like teach you the right things to then sort of do something that you never expected to like do here in Australia.
For sure.
And
And it's interesting because there's a really interesting mentality that comes with a lot of this stuff. And I'd be intrigued to know what like a lot of your listeners think of this kind of stuff. But when we sit here, a lot of us, and you would do it, I know so many people that do this, when you sit and you talk about your journey you've been on, you're like, and I was lucky enough to meet that person, and I was lucky enough to be offered that job, and I was lucky enough that this person got sick, so then I got this. But there is an aspect, and someone had to remind me of this, because it's not just luck a lot of the time. It's consistency, it's hard work, and in some ways it's stubbornness, just not giving up. And it's true, because like even when I think about the days of back with those English stunt guys, they were nurturing me and offering me their time, because when they said, hey, do you want to do this? I would be very respectful of their time. I would then go above and beyond to make sure that I continued to train what they were showing me in my own spare time, so I wasn't just utilizing their time. And then I would ask questions, and they would see that I came back and I was hungry, and that I had put the time in to be a good student. I think a lot of people forget that being a good student is a skill set in its own right. It's kind of like learning taekwondo. It's learning how to cook. Same with leadership. So to be a good student meant that if I made the rule that if someone invested 1 hour of time into me, I invested 3 hours of time into that skill that they were teaching me at the time, every week or every day, depending on what the turnaround time was. Yeah. And that means that people want to put more time into you, because it's not dead time and dead space that they're working with, if that makes sense. And I'm finding I'm getting to a point in my career where I'm getting asked to help people as well. And you have to give them little nudges and tests and see if they will be proactive and utilize your time you're giving them. And then if they do, you start giving them more time and more of your energy and more of your energy. So there is a huge aspect of all these things. Like, we're so lucky to be where we are, but we also need to remember that we've all worked our butts off to be where we are as well. And even with your interviews and these kind of things, like, there's a hunger there. You're taking the extra time to learn extra things in your own time. You're not just taking from everybody, if that makes sense. So it's a huge aspect of how people get to where they are, I think.
That's an amazing metric. I've never thought of like that. Like, even when I get new information, and then putting in more of your own work. Like for jiu-jitsu, I've done the same.
Yep.
Because you train jiu-jitsu as well, so
yes.
You probably know this. But when my teachers teach me something, then when I'm home, I visualize it over and over and over, and I do my own sort of training by myself.
Yep.
And then when I come back, they see that I improved so much, so they're excited to teach me more.
Yep.
And that's roughly the same thing as well, right? Like
For
when
sure.
they teach you, then and you come back with like, I already got this, or I know how to do it now. And then
an important thing that a lot of people also forget is that if you get people to invest time into you, they become part of your team. Like they're your little cheerleaders on the side, and they give you their time and their energy. And that's how you achieve greatness, because the more people behind you helping push you forward, the easier it is, and eventually it all self-perpetuates. So yeah, I'm a huge believer in that and respecting the time people give you. I do that with all my private instructors and my teachers. They gift me knowledge, and it's not they're teaching me; they're gifting me their knowledge. Like my BJJ professor has been training his whole life. He's spent his whole life on the mats. He doesn't have to give me his knowledge that he has spent years and years, tens of years honing. It's a gift that he's giving me. So I want to be very respectful of that. And people's time is the most valuable, like, currency, I believe. So if someone's giving you your time, you should be respectful of that and put your own time back into that.
Because that's like putting your own time back into it is the way of showing how much you respect their time, right?
Yeah,
It's like the biggest form of appreciation of what they're teaching.
for sure. Yeah. And then eventually you get to start giving that back, which is one of life's biggest joys, is when you get to teach others. And there's a very famous martial artist called Dan Inosanto that I've had the honor of training with. And he trained with Bruce Lee and created a new martial art called Jeet Kune Do. And he always tells people, he says, it's not yours until you give it away. And that's a great... It has so many facets. It's not just about making sure you pass it on so the knowledge doesn't die. It also works for the person teaching, because a lot of the things I know how to do it, but until I figure out how I would teach someone how to do it, I haven't delved deep enough into what it is to be able to pass it on or package it up right. So until I go through that process of needing to teach another person it, I can't just say, oh yeah, and then you just lift your leg and wow, it's amazing, you do it. It's so good. No, it doesn't work like that. You have to really analyze all the movement. And until you've done that, once you've done that, man, it's yours. It's yours forever. You will never lose that skill set.
That's amazing. That's a good way to see if you really own the skill itself.
Yeah.
And you told me that you also trained with a Jackie Chan team,
yes.
stunt team. Can you tell me a bit how that came to be? Or
yeah, so I was midway through Mortal Kombat 2. We'd just finished that, and now we've just finished it. But and we had an actors' strike, which meant, and it was like one of the biggest ones in history, and it was all about the AI technology and all this kind of stuff, and it shut down basically the whole world for the film industry for, I think it ended up being almost 4 or 5 months. Like, it was quite a substantial amount of time. But as a stuntman, I'm like, no way, guilt-free time off. I'm going to go train this and train that. And so I hit up my mentor, a guy called Chan Griffin, and he's an amazing human. And I was like, hey, I want to go do a Taekwondo training camp. I really want to get good at kicks, like crazy good at them. And he's like, Dex, have you seen this yet? And he sent me this thing, and the Jackie Chan stunt team were offering a stunt training camp for about 2 weeks, and they were selecting people for it. And you just had to apply. You just had to send in like your stunt reel, answer some questions, and then based on that, they would pick you whether or not you would get to go to Beijing and go do this thing. And I was like, no, but again, like, I'm going to listen to my mentor. I'm going to do what he says. If he thinks it's a good idea, I do it. I'm going to apply to it. And so I did. And then 2 days later, I got in and I was selected. And then I was running around trying to get this visa sorted, because to get a visa for China is probably the most difficult for an Australian. We're pretty lucky, and most of our visa processes are pretty simple. And had to book the flights, because you have to pre-book the flights, and then the accommodation is all sorted with this camp that we're doing. And yeah, I went for, I think it was 3.5 weeks I went in the end to Beijing. And it was the most important trip of my life in terms of stunts. They are so skilled and amazing, but so humbly confident. It's weird 2 words to put together, but there's such a huge aspect in Australia of self-deprecating, and we do it in all aspects of our lives, and especially in stunts. You know, you don't want to be seen showing too much confidence, because then that's an opportunity for someone to come and cut you off at the knees sort of thing, or a bit of tall poppy syndrome. Like it's a thing here in Australia a bit, and these guys are just so humbly confident in that. You could ask them like, have you ever tried like a bit of BJJ? And they're like, no, but I've trained really hard my whole life, so I believe I could learn that really quickly if I needed to. Or have you, do you use a spear at all with your Shaolin Kung Fu? And they're like, oh yeah, I'm really good at that. And you're just like, man, that is so amazing that you can say that. Here we would say, yeah, I'm not very good at it though, because you don't want to say that you're good at it in case someone's like, oh shit, yeah, you're not good at it. And I learned this amazing thing from them, and that was just that I had been self-deprecating so much in my life with all aspects of these kind of things. And it's such a simple thing, like just be like, I'm not very good at that, but I'll give it a try. And that's a really nice way to be. But at some point when you do it enough, and there's a famous quote from Bruce Lee about this, basically you start to believe it yourself that you're not good enough, and then you hold yourself back. And so I learned from them to not be like that as much, and to stop holding myself back. And they just unleashed a whole new level within me because of it. And I have some amazing lifelong friends from that trip, and it was super intense. Like every single day was at least a 16-hour day of training or editing or doing some kind of homework or aspect of a project that we had to do to complete. And all these different people from around the world of different skill sets, different knowledge bases. It was an amazing trip, and I'm so glad it happened. And it's stayed with me for a long time, and hopefully will stay with me forever. Like a lot of the things that they taught me, so I love it.
Such an amazing experience.
Yeah.
And the stunt team of Jackie Chan, how is that? Is that like Jackie Chan, like around him when he just over his whole career he just accumulated amazing people around him, and that became his team, and that's sort of who you trained with?
Yeah, so he was off filming something at the time in the north of China, but it was run by his right-hand man called He La-she, and if you ever see Jackie Chan walking or he's on a film set, you'll generally see this guy right behind him. And he was our main instructor that taught us, and then they would bring in specialists like a Wing Chun guy or a Wushu guy or a Seikyu director or even a DOP. And these are all people that have built relationships and been absorbed into the Jackie Chan stunt team. I don't know how the minor details of it work, but I know that basically once you're in that team, it seems like when he gets a film or he hears of a film in China that needs some stunt work, he generally is able to facilitate it with his stunt team. And it's such a huge honor to be part of the Jackie Chan stunt team. They've got all this paraphernalia they wear, and it's like a big ceremony and all this kind of stuff, and then you get absorbed into it. And that's kind of what's been drifting into the Western world, and that's why stunt teams are a thing here now too, because it is powerful. Like, I think a lot of people don't realize that with stunt work, we have each other's lives in our hands most days. Like sometimes someone might be pulling my line, which means that I'm attached to a line to do a big rig, like from an explosion. I'm attached to a wire and I've got to flick around. But if that person doesn't prepare to lower me in nicely, or that maybe I get stuck in my costume or something like that, something goes wrong, that they're ready to grab that line and save my life. Because there's guys that have been paralyzed or had serious injuries. So to have a team of people that are your like stunt family, and they'll protect you and keep you safe so that you can go home to your family or just even walk home instead of being pushed out in a wheelchair or something like that. It's amazing. So it's great that Jackie Chan and these guys have created this system of a stunt team that's gone into the Western world, because it keeps us all safe.
Awesome. Yeah, because especially in a occupation where there's quite some danger, it's nice to have the same people that you trust around you that you can work with.
Yeah, for sure. It's an interesting mentality to have, like yeah, you really have to rely on these people. They have your life in their hands, and sometimes they might not even be someone that you completely agree with their morals or their way of life. But when that person has my life in their hands, I feel 100% safe, which is really interesting, like mental game, like to have someone that maybe you're like, I don't agree with some of your life choices or whatever like that, but then to still know that they've got to make sure that you're alive at the end of the day, like it's really fascinating.
Interesting way to look at it, indeed.
Yeah.
And what you just said about that whole team, that reminds me something that my BJJ coach told me, was that when you master something, communities just start forming around you.
Yeah.
And like, especially with like Jackie Chan, like how apparent that is in this situation.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
From his whole career, and then having like a team and this beautiful people that want to work with him and like learn from him.
Yeah.
And from the people that he worked with.
Yep.
Sort of it waters down, but even like his team is like on a whole other level, probably with other teams in different countries, right?
For sure, yeah, and all offering different aspects. Like there's a really famous team in America at the moment called 8711, and they do all the John Wick films and Atomic Blonde. I just did The Fall Guy with them, but they're based all around BJJ and judo. And then you have Jackie Chan, who's come from Chinese martial arts and all aspects of it, and Hong Kong cinema, and every team facilitates different styles or comes from a different origin. But what's great is they all know how to create amazing action sequences and can still come together and create something that is just as interesting to watch. So it's very cool.
Wow. It's such a cool like environment to be a part of, to like work in.
Yeah.
What was the reason for you to like start with like BJJ then, with the whole background of everything else that you've been doing?
Yeah, well, so I started in, like I mentioned, I started in Chinese martial arts, and Chinese martial arts encompasses so much. Like that's a lifetime of learning in itself. My Sifu always used to say, congratulations, you picked up another grain of sand on the beach that is Kung Fu. You're like, oh God, that's overwhelming. There's so much knowledge. And because for people that don't know what Chinese martial arts is, there's a lot of offset branches. So there's Shaolin Kung Fu, there's Wushu, there's Baji, there's Bagua, Chen and Yang Tai Chi. There's just so many variations. And each one in their own right is overwhelming in the amount to learn in it. But I wanted to start learning something very different to how my body had been used to moving. And at this point, I'd been training tricking for a long time. So I thought, okay, I should start working on groundwork. And BJJ was the perfect thing for that. And I have become obsessed with it, as most people do when they start to do it, like the chess involved with it, the movement I love. Like I definitely at first probably frustrated my professors because I wanted to learn the fun, flashy stuff for stunt, bearing bolos, like cool epic takedowns, flying arm bars, flying everything, and I say that they probably hated it, but I think they actually really enjoyed it. It was refreshing for them. But as my journey has continued, I've started to go into the fighting aspect of it, and even actually been pushed into judo with it. I'm very lucky in my school called Virtue. They have some amazing students that are second degree black belts in judo, and are winning national championships right now. So my sensei for judo is one of my BJJ fellow students. And I'm completely obsessed. I love it so much. There's so much to learn and so much technique within it, and every day is a different, Tetris puzzle. But I think what I've learned to love the most about it is the community that goes with it. And that happens with all the martial arts, is you meet all these like-minded people that just are putting so much effort into something that isn't necessarily going to help them with their career. It's not going to necessarily help them with many aspects of their life, but they put so much love and time into it. And I have so much respect for that, because in a way, I'm kind of selfish. Like I use all of this for stunt work. But this community is so beautiful and welcoming that I don't want to miss a day because I want to see these friends who are just as hardworking as stunt people sometimes, especially my professor who wants to be competing in worlds and trying to become a professional athlete. And I love that because I also get to spend time with them and not talk about work but still train just as hard with them. So it's a beautiful community which you've experienced as well.
Do you think what would you say is the art part of like the martial art and then like especially in PJJ? What do you think the art in that?
Ooh, that's a very good question. I actually think the art is less about like anything to do with the movement as such. Actually, for me, the art in martial art is less about the movement because I've been lucky enough to train in close to 10, 12 different martial arts. At the moment, I'm not amazing at all of them. I definitely am jack of all trades, master of nothing. But I do have trained well enough that I can start learning things quicker and get better faster at them. But for me, the art is actually the mentality that comes behind it. It's the humbleness, the ability to lose and still have a smile on your face and learn from it, and not take that moment away from someone else. To win to win a fight maybe and still be humble enough that you can still learn from something within that. That I think that for me is the art of it, and that actually I think plays into many aspects of, and should play into everyone's aspects of their life, because life is all about at all times being open to the idea that you could learn something from anybody, and through that you are always open to the idea of improving yourself, and even the idea that you could be wrong. I know that's a weird thing to say, but if you are open-minded enough to the idea that you could be wrong in situations, your life will be so much simpler and easier. And so even in art and the martial art, I believe it kind of encompasses this mentality that should come along with it.
That's a beautiful answer. And it's funny that you mentioned the being wrong part, because the first time I had a conversation about it was on a plane just recently.
Yeah.
And a guy asked me, "Do you know the difference between being wrong and being right?" And I said, "No." And he said, "It's the feeling you get when you find out you're wrong."
Yeah, for sure.
The rest is just the same.
For sure. Check your ego and don't be frustrated that you're wrong. Be excited that you're wrong. You just learned something.
Yeah. And I think martial arts is a beautiful way of sort of finding out that you always want to be a white belt. You always want to be sort of eager to learn and get excited about all these new little things.
For sure.
And I started making like my own goals, not really physical things, so like, oh, I want a blue belt, I want this, but just being able to keep that, like let's say, or like to always ask questions, even if I submit someone, like, oh, what could I do better?
Yeah.
Or how can I self-motivate myself better to like still show up even though my whole body is hurt? Those things are, I think that fits in the art as well, because mastering those things, that is like, for me, like mind expanding.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting that white belt mentality of learning. There was something that I thought of before we did this interview that I was like, I'd love to talk about this aspect of stunts. And that is this constant need or want to learn something. And there's an aspect of that also is the drive and the hunger for progress. But in a way, the way that it kind of is designed and the training that we do, and this applies to other people in other aspects of their life as well, it's like we're addicts. Like, stunt people are drug addicts for progress, and you get to a point where you're learning, and every day you wake up and you learn something new, and it's so incredible that I can even say that. That's why I love my job so much. But at some point, I start to expect that. I expect that every day I wake up, I'm going to learn something new. And that's an amazing drive to have. But then you're going to have these ups and downs and these lulls, because you'll then start getting frustrated with yourself when you don't have progress. And then you'll be super high and excited when you learn something new. And then you might have a week of being injured or something, and then you don't get to learn anything. And it starts to really affect your mood, or you start doubting yourself, you start questioning all these things. So it's really interesting mentality that comes with training so hard and then start getting addicted to the progress and learning things. But it's important to have that, I think, that aspect of wanting to be a white belt and open to learning something new all the time, and knowing that there is something new that you can learn. But I don't know how, I'm still learning that balance of expecting it and just going with the flow of it.
And being all right with it.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I mean, if you like the feeling of that, having that, then it's just also knowing that the downside is there.
Yes.
Then why find the balance? Because then you have nice ups and you have sometimes lows, but you still have the ups.
For sure.
Right?
And maybe that's what it is. It's just knowing that this is really boring.
Yeah.
This is exciting. I'm going to enjoy my downs. I'm going to enjoy my highs. It's I think that's what it is. It's just variation.
I've been working on this sort of goal of mine. Is like, how can I self-motivate myself the most in like moments when I'm really down?
Yeah.
And I found that if I can conjure up that image of the thing that I really want, that's a very powerful way of motivating myself. But then the thing that I really want cannot be something physical. I first thought it could, because it does make me excited to have something. But it makes me more exciting to have that thing to be something that I can get good at, or it's more of a, how do I explain, like a feeling, like the excitement you get from progress.
Yes.
Like that is a way better thing to get excited about, because I don't get excited about getting a blue belt. I get excited about like the progress I make from all the
knowledge that comes with it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm still trying to find out how I can conjure that in a small package, and then every time I'm down, self-motivate myself.
Yeah.
So I think it's a life journey, of course, learning how to self-motivate and getting better at it.
For sure, but I think that's when that community comes in, and that's what is so important about them, because they're the ones that are going to lift you up, and they're the ones that will help you create a self-perpetuating system where they'll message you like, hey, I haven't seen your training, why aren't you here? Get your butt into the training. Okay. Better go. And it does it itself. If you surround yourself with the right people, it will always sort itself out. And I'm a big believer in creating a self-perpetuating system for yourself, with your training, with your career goals, with your social life goals, with your family goals. Like, if you are positive and surround yourself with the right people, it will generally eventually get to the point where it does itself. It does it for you. You don't have to worry about it anymore.
Can you tell me a bit more about that self-propelling? Like, how would you...
Yeah, so a good example I can use, and it's just because it's the one I know so much about with stunts, is when I started my stunt trainings I had a huge goal. I wanted to be in Australia's top stunt team, and I sat down and I analyzed. I'm notoriously an overanalyzer, or overthinker, some people would say. And so I sat down and I looked at all the people that are full-time stunt team members in Australia, around the world, and I looked at their skill sets and all these things that they'd been doing. And I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, these people aren't just stunt performers. They're stunt riggers. They know how to do previs, which means they know how to hold a camera. They know how to edit. They know how to do visual effects. They're a Swiss Army knife. So they are so invaluable in a team that you can never not have them there. And so I started to learn all these aspects of all the different parts and components that come along with stunts. But it meant that I had to sacrifice every other aspect of my life. So career came first. But I knew that would be short-lived. So it was a sacrifice I was willing to make. And as I kept going through that and getting my goals and eventually getting to the team that I wanted, it meant that then I didn't have to worry about what the next job was, when the money was going to come in, or even how I would cater my training around things. Because when you get into that stunt team, you have all these people with different skill sets and they'll help teach you. Or they're like, hey, have you tried this Taekwondo coach? Have you tried that BJJ professor? You should hit him up, do some privates with that guy. And just completely takes the thought process out of anything. And then with work, self-perpetuating, because then you're in that stunt team and you know it's all about when the boss gets work and that kind of stuff. So you have to, it's a sacrifice you have to make to then eventually now it's like, oh wow, I really don't have to think about any aspect about my career apart from just making sure I'm conditioning and doing everything I need and all the training that I should be motivated to do. And now I can focus on other aspects of my life. So I got that to a point with hard work and determination and analyzing it, that it self-perpetuates itself now. The phone rings and you get the jobs. And that's not just for stunt work, that can be for anything. You sometimes have to do the hard work and realize that you have to make other sacrifices so that you can, after 3, 4, 5 years, get it to have its own momentum. And then it's effortless. And that snowball just gets bigger and bigger, and it's amazing. And you just look at it and you're like, oh my God, I created this with my hard work and the people that I've surrounded myself with. And look at this house I'm able to buy. Look at this nice car I'm able to get. Look at this amazing holiday I'm about to go on. Like, it's incredible what it can offer up.
And by having that self-perpetual sort of motion, you finally have more free brain power to just think about other things as well.
Sure.
Right? So then you have time to do more jiu-jitsu and open sort of your hobbies or even your learning open for more and different things.
Yeah, 100%. Or even just a mind that doesn't have that burden of the stress of certain things that affect us can be more creative. And imagination is so powerful, and especially in the film industry. And for me to be able to have none of those normal stresses means that I can start sitting and thinking of the next steps. So, I want to be a second year director. I want to be a director. I'm going to come up with these crazy ideas, and they just come. You're in the shower, you're driving, your mind is not overwhelmed and going in circles worrying about the minutiae of life. It's just like, what about this? And then you're going to do this. And then what if that guy ran in and then stabbed that guy there? And, you can start being creative. It's so much more creative because your mind is freed up of all that burden.
Would you say you end up into this living flow state, not being you can just, it flows?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I haven't thought about it this deeply before, I guess, until we've talked about it. But I do believe so, yeah, for sure. And you for sure get kickbacks, like I've definitely had weeks and months where you might have like family problems or friend problems or girlfriend problems or whatever it might be, and you can feel like your mind's shutting down in a way, like it's so overwhelmed by that stress. So if you can figure out the ways of how to alleviate it or then just get to come back to it, then yeah, it comes to like a flow state of just, yeah, things just happen and you get creative and then that just means that you're able to open yourself up more to other things. Like, I would never thought I would be a stuntman. Going from studying at university in wildlife documentaries to then becoming a stuntman, man, never, ever in my wildest dreams.
It's funny because your background is actually very similar to mine.
Oh yeah?
Like, yeah, my neighbors would call me like Tigger from like Winnie the Pooh because I was always making so much noise. So I did the same sport as you did, athletics.
Yeah.
And yeah, as well, just every day, also as often as possible.
Yeah.
And I think that built the foundation of knowing how to move your body.
For sure.
So I got the same excitement of, I went after doing a lot of skateboarding, BMX riding, doing all those like other cool stuff.
Yeah.
I went into trampoline jumping with my friends.
Yeah.
And there this guy was such a professional free runner. And on Thursdays, the whole park would be empty, like the whole day. And we would pay for 1 hour. And he would just teach us the whole day cool things. And he could do the same type of flips we just talked about. And I can still remember when I first hit my first combo of like moose, backflip, Barani, back. Like, oh, this is so amazing. But it's funny to see that back.
Yeah.
And, how sort of your future. You don't always know where you end up, but if you enjoy it and just like use what you learn, like the guys in the UK when they taught you all of these skills,
Yeah.
and then they present you with this opportunity here.
Yep.
So have you thought about it? No. And then it just kickstarts this whole amazing sort of life journey.
For sure. Yeah, I think people come into your life at the right time and for the right moment, and if they're willing and giving with their time, which I always try and be these days as well, yeah, you'll never forget that human, and I'll never forget the people that invested time in me. So, and I always try and give back. Yeah, it's important.
That's so cool. And you said you did Fall Guy just recently because it's still in the cinemas, right?
Yes, yeah. So it's just come out, and so a few like exciting big movies I've done recently was Fall Guy. I did a bunch of stuff on Furiosa, especially for the mocap team on that. We just finished Mortal Kombat 2, which hopefully we'll have a trailer for at the end of the year, which I'm super excited about. That movie is a childhood dream of mine. I grew up watching those, playing those video games. Yeah, a bunch of TV series I'm doing at the moment. Hopefully a big kind of crazy movie coming up that I'm not allowed to talk about. But it's amazing. I never thought and it's funny. I always think like, I never thought I would ever do this, but why? Why do we restrict ourselves? Why do I not think that would be a possibility for me? And so on that, I actually think it's important to mention that I'm no one special. I just work hard and am very consistent with my training. I'm definitely the turtle in the hair. Anyone can do whatever they think they can do, and whatever they dream up for their dreams, you've just got to keep pushing for it and going for it. Because if I can become a stuntman, anyone can do whatever they want. So, yeah, just want to remind everyone of that.
So can you tell me more what you did then in the Fall Guy? Well,
So Fall Guy is a very exciting movie for the stunt community. It's directed by David Leitch. He's a stuntman himself that turned into a director, which is an amazing journey that a lot of us are fighting for as well. But the reason he did it was the film shows a lot of aspects of what it's like to be a stunt performer and the training we have to do, or just the next day when you wake up and your body is destroyed and so sore. But he's also breaking records. Like they did the most car rolls from a car cannon in history. They jumped a guy, I think it was 160 feet from a helicopter down into an airbag. I don't know the distance, but they jumped a car between like this ravine, like just historic, this film. And to be a part of it was so incredible because one thing that they're trying to get at as well with this is that there isn't a huge amount of recognition for what we do. But so the Oscars, there's no Oscar for stunts, but there's an Oscar for editing, there's an Oscar for the sound, there's an Oscar for music, there's an Oscar for acting. But when you watch a trailer and they're trying to sell a movie, what do you think's in the trailer?
all the cool stuff.
The action. So they are making people turn up to the cinema because of what we have done. And there is a huge art form to it. And so he's trying to bring light to that, and that stunts does deserve an Oscar. Stunt does deserve the recognition. It's such a honed skill that we spend our life doing and making sure we train our body and condition it for all the time and gain knowledge from here, and just jam it together and make something really special. So yeah, it was an amazing movie to be a part of. I'm in two main sequences in it. We shut down the Opera House for, I think it was a week, which is crazy. Shutting down a major tourist destination. And and I'm these aliens that are riding these rigs getting exploded by Ryan Gosling in the background and in the foreground, and then I'm part of this Harbour Bridge sequence where we shut down the Harbour Bridge for a morning because you can't shut it down for too long, and there's this big garbage truck chase, and I'm part of the traffic that's going around the cars, because a lot of people wouldn't even realize that, that needs to be stunt people. If there's cars driving with actors in it, we have to create that traffic and swerve in and out and make sure that everyone's safe. So yeah, I wasn't part of the full core time team on that, the core stunt team, but it was amazing to get to go down and be a part of some like pretty iconic sequences for it.
It's so amazing that the director now is finally putting some more light on, like, the coolest guys in the movies are the stunt guys. So I hope there's more recognition is coming there in the future. So that could be amazing.
I think so. I think even the movie in itself, like I've taken friends to go see it, and they're just like, it was a really special moment actually. The other day, I took my professor, and we walked out, and he's like, just looked at me, he's going, "You're a real life superhero." And I remember I got really emotional about it, because I was like, oh man, like I do. We kill ourselves. We train so hard, and we wake up the next day and just like, man, my body is killing me. But to entertain people like that, and for him to see that movie, and that movie sheds a light, like the storyline is that Ryan Gosling is a stuntman, so he's showing, what it's like to be one of us. And so I think even that someone has done that aspect of it, let alone the recognition, is amazing, because I've got lots of people messaging me and talking to me about it, and they're like, is it really like this? And I'm like, and so much more. You couldn't even believe the madness that we put up with.
Imagine.
Yeah, it's another reality film sometimes.
I look forward to watching it.
Yeah, I highly recommend everyone go see it. It's very fun, very fun.
Very cool. I mean, it's so, your whole journey, it's such a big difference from like having then the Fall Guy, this movie that you were a part of, to like having the nature documentary and the nature movies and films you made in when you started up. Is that right?
Yeah. So I had the craziest like start to my career. I went to uni to start studying filmmaking, and halfway through my degree, I won a competition with Animal Planet, which is a wildlife documentary TV station, and they flew me to South Africa to be part of a TV show where they filmed us learning how to be wildlife filmmakers. It was trying to unearth the next David Attenborough, and so I won this competition. I was one of 6 people in the world flown to South Africa and taught how to be a wildlife filmmaker. And they flew in all the best, like the best producer, the best script writer, the best editor, the best sound guy, the best cameraman. They would come in and they would teach us these aspects of wildlife filmmaking. And it was like a huge dream come true. I grew up on David Attenborough. I'm obsessed with his work and everything he teaches and offers the world. And I lived on a safari park for a month, and it was amazing. It was like living in The Lion King, like you would wake up and there's warthogs surrounding your villa, and then some days we couldn't leave because there was a leopard lounging by the pool, so we'd have to wait for it to move on. We were put in these really amazing accommodation that didn't have like necessarily the electric fences and stuff, so you really felt part of it. And the sounds and the smells is like so different. But I was living my dream. Like I wanted to become a wildlife filmmaker, and I was learning from the best and doing it. I didn't win the show, which probably worked out in my favor. But I had one of the judges who was also the producer that came. His name's Joe Kennedy, and he had been working for the BBC Natural History Unit. And BBC Natural History Unit is David Attenborough. That is the highest of high-end wildlife documentaries that exist. And he came up to me at the end of it, and he said, just so you know, I think you should have won the show, but would you like to come work for me in Cape Town? I have a documentary coming up. And I was like, yes, but I need to quickly go home, get some stuff, and then I'll come back. And he's like, no worries, we've got a couple of months. I was like, okay. And he's like, it'll probably only be a couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks. I just want to give you a chance to get some experience, do all this stuff. Anyway, long story short, I ended up 3 weeks turned into 3 years. And I lived in Cape Town for 3 years working on great white shark documentaries. And it was insane. I got to do things that people have never done before or can't even pay to do. And we lived at sea for months on end. Hello, puppy. You'll come to be part of the show. Huh?
Hello, Molly.
Hey, you're gonna steal the limelight.
I love how she comes by.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Molly. Hi. Go bed. Go bed.
Oh, she just wanted to say hello.
You say hello. Keep that in.
And so I got to work on great white shark documentaries. It was mainly shark ones that I worked on when I was out there. We got to live at sea between Madagascar and Mozambique, and we were like one of 10 people in the world that were allowed to go to this rising atoll in the middle of the sea, that the French government limited the amount of people that are allowed to go. I got to live in a diamond mine because it has the world's largest seal colony. And I had to wear the same clothes every day. I wasn't allowed to shower because the deodorants and the soap smells would mean that they would freak out and realize we were something other than a seal, you know. And like your clothes start to get stiff like cardboard, you know, because of like just you're rolling through their urine and their crap and other dead seals. And eventually it got to the point where they were like having all their babies, and then their babies would come up and sit in your lap because they thought you were another seal. Like, it was just insane when I look back at it. It was like a whole nother life that I lived. But when I was doing this, I started to look ahead and see that everyone in the wildlife filmmaking business had family that they didn't see. They were separated, or it just was a heavy burden because you have to be away. You have to be away filming. And I don't know if anyone's ever watched the behind the scenes of some of the David Attenborough documentaries, but at the end of it, he shows like some of the crazy things they had to do to film things. And some of it is like, oh, I had to sit in the Alps for eight months to film a snow leopard, and I didn't have contact with another human. That's a human that might have a family. So I wanted to make sure that if I was going to sacrifice my entire life and being to this industry, that I wanted to make sure I tested other aspects of filmmaking beforehand, so that I could definitely dive headfirst knowing that I've made the right decision, because my degree was filmmaking in general, so all aspects of it. So that's when I came back and I started learning commercials, and then I started working in editing commercials, and I did Kia car commercials, McDonald's commercials, all this kind of stuff, helping the rich get richer. It was a very weird feeling, but there's a lot of like prestige that comes with editing commercials, and that weird little community that exists for it. And then through that started to learn visual effects and became like a junior VFX producer and worked on like Hacksaw Ridge and these other films behind the scenes and Great Gatsby, which is really bizarre because those are now the stunt people that I work alongside. But long story short, this long-winded journey that I took ended up being what helped escalate me very quickly into stunts and into very experienced teams that eventually got me into that stunt team, is because a huge aspect of stunt work these days is creating previs, and previs is pre-visualization of what a stunt fight will look like, where basically we will go and film it for them. And it may just be rough, it'll look a bit student filmy and the effects and stuff, but they'll be like, that's it. We're going to shoot it like that. And then they'll just add all the extra layers and make it better and better. But previs requires you to know how to edit, which I'd just been learning. I'd become a professional commercial editor. Needed to know how to do visual effects because we'll do a bunch of After Effects and put explosions in so they don't have to imagine it. The less you have them imagine, the more they can just be engrossed in the emotion of the fight and the scene.
That's it.
Yeah. And by working in visual effects, I learned that. I learned sound through all of that. The wildlife filmmaking taught me all those other aspects. Then when I went into film production, when I was in the production offices organizing all the actors, the equipment, the paperwork, the call sheets, the schedules, all this kind of stuff, and helping distribute all this stuff, that meant that I understood the other aspect of stunts and filmmaking and knew the inner workings of a film. So all of these other things, like as much as I wish I had have started stunts when I was 20 years old instead of 32, 34 when I started, I would never be where I am today without that amazing journey that I got to go on. And there's another weird little aspect that happened along this journey too, because I just am open to wanting to learn and experience all different facets, is that I loved doing volunteer work with kids. So for the longest time since I was 18 years old, 38 now, I had been doing volunteer work with kids with cancer with a charity called Camp Quality, and we would take these kids out of the hospitals when they were well enough to leave, and we would take them to go learn to be kids again, because when you're going through chemotherapy, when you're doing all your treatments, you're surrounded by adults and they're like, you can't do that, you're sick, you can't. We're like, come be a child again. Do these activities. We do high ropes courses. We're like out on boats. We're, just playgrounds, like just amazing stuff. This charity is incredible what it does. But through that as well, I also then started to do American summer camps. So I went and became a counselor and would travel the world doing that, because eventually I started doing these summer camps that would send kids around the world. So I got to travel Europe with them, go to Hawaii. They even came to Australia. They do camps in Borneo, Thailand, like these crazy West Coast Connection was this company that I worked for in my summer. And the reason I bring this up is that all these aspects, like for everyone's journey, they might think that like, I'm so lost, I'm so confused, I don't know where I'm going, I'm doing all these things. And it's like, at some point it will all just go, boom, and come together for you. I swear to it, it will. And in all that journey as well, you'll have learned all these lessons. Like working with kids, I learned patience. Man, actors and filmmaking people are children. I know how to deal with children. I have all the patience in the world because I've worked with kids my whole life in volunteer aspect. And the editing and the visual effects and the sound and the training gymnastics my whole life, and like it eventually all just comes together in the most beautiful way, and you'll just be the best version of yourself at that point, and you'll always be getting better, 1% better every day. My BJJ professor always says. But yeah, so don't be like, it's an amazing journey. Don't be afraid of like the forks in the road, and just enjoy it. Just go down what is fun at the time. Like it'll come together at some point for you.
And you just became this beautiful, well-rounded individual, and that just fits.
Exactly, and I still make mistakes, and I still say the wrong thing sometimes, and I'll still do something stupid, and I'll still, I'm always learning, and I love that, Yeah.
I mean, isn't that the most fun thing about life? Learning, because that's the addiction, right? You and I both have just
for sure.
Learning more and more.
This amazing human recently came into my life, Allison Suarez. He's the #1 rooster weight BJJ in the world, black belt, and he's about to get he's about to win like absolutely every world championship from every belt like this year. He's just insane. But I've just connected with him so easily because he's like me, and he just is like, man, I just want to do everything. Come skydiving with me. I want to go do this. Come foil riding. Come do this. And I'm just like, man, like it's amazing what the world can offer and what they'll put in the people they'll put into your life. Even, with stunts, I'm so thankful for all the martial arts instructors, and, my professor and my sensei are some of my closest friends these days, because they're just incredible humans that are just as driven. They don't go crazy partying. They just have such an amazing goal set, and they're working hard for it, and I want to help them get there too. Like that's what it's all about. We're creating that self-perpetuating system.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I can hear it now, because I see it sometimes that the more cool stuff you do, the more like-minded cool people you meet.
Yeah.
It was the same, like, oh, let's go skydiving.
Yeah.
I got my skydiving license when I was 18.
Yeah.
So I'm like, even that is something like, oh, did it.
Yeah.
And then I've done it, and I meet like people like you, like there as well, like different people that are super excited to like go and do all these crazy things, to focus on different things. And I feel like it's just when you step out of that comfort zone thing, then you just start meeting people that have exactly the same type of like mental capacity as sort of
For sure.
you.
Yeah. And when it clicks, it clicks. It's so nice.
And it starts going. Then it's that cycle of just like, oh, do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? And then you meet even more amazing and awesome people.
Yep. Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah.
I think this is maybe a cool part to like round it out.
Yeah.
This was awesome. Like Dexter, I think this conversation, I learned so much from you. Like even that, I think the main thing I want to put as a new thing in my life is everything that someone is willing to teach me.
Yeah.
Like an hour, I will 3x it, or I put 3 times as much time into it myself to like showcase how much it sort of appreciate.
Yeah.
And I think that one is so valuable. I think that one is that's gonna grow my life.
For sure. Yeah, I think I was very lucky to have the mentors I did, and they, reminded me along the way that being a student, being a leader is a skill set in itself. So learn how to be a good student, learn how to be a good leader. You can't just be thrust, especially leadership, you can't just be thrust into that position. There's books you have to read, there's podcasts you should listen to. And being a student as well, figure out how to be a good student that people want to invest more time into. It's so important.
Yeah, it is. Those qualities are, I think, like small things I sometimes forget.
Yeah.
Or like maybe more people forget, but it's like just what is a good student?
Yeah.
Like think about it and then just go over it like, is if I want to teach someone something, what would I like to see?
Yeah.
When I try to teach someone, I want eagerness, I want to hear questions, I want to see self-input, those type of things.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to like share before we end our podcast?
No, I think you've let me drag on and talk way too much as it is. We're stunt guys. We like to just hide away and not be seen and just be in the background. So thank you very much for having me. It's been nice to get to tell my story a little bit. So I appreciate it. And it's amazing what you're doing here and how much you are learning every day from even when I first met you and all the things you've taken on board. It's incredible.
Thank you, Dexter. And I hope to learn a lot more, but you've helped in that process. So you're now part of my process.
Hey. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you a lot. Thank you, Dexter, for this beautiful podcast. And thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions for Dexter, just put them in the comments and we'll make sure that Dexter can answer them. And if you want to see more podcasts like this, then join the Stuntman community. I upload every week a video, and sometimes it's a podcast and sometimes it's a video about something I learned in my own life. So if you're keen for that, join the Stuntman community, and I'll see you next week. Thank you. All right. Try to get better at my outro, but it still feels. It feels a bit.
No, it was good. Yeah, I feel like something that I should have done, and we can put in the description if you want. Is like I like that some podcasts I listen to, they say. So how can people reach out to you, get in contact if something like sparked interest, so they want to ask more questions? It's like, people want to look me up on Instagram or whatever,
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Joe Rogan or no.
Lex Friedman? Is it?
I actually think it's the what's his name? The DOP. He does it at the end of his super famous Roger Deakins, and I really like that he does it because you then look up that person.
Like, how can you get in contact with them?
Yeah, if you have more questions or you're just interested in following more of that person's life, like where to go.
I like that.
Yeah,
I'll put that in. Yeah. So if people want to get in contact with you or learn more about Dexter, how can I get in touch with you?
I'm pretty active on Instagram, so if people want to ask me some questions on there, would love to help anyone on their journey. So it's dexter.aaron is my Instagram handle. And check out some stuff on there. I've got some crazy videos of me doing some stunts and things. So yeah.
Wonderful. I will make sure to put it in the subscription. So check it out.
Nice.
My main focus of my channel is making podcasts. And I interview people that excel in sport, in finance, in life. So if you want to check those out, they're on my channel. They're Stuntman Podcasting. Enjoy. I'll see you in the next one.